Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the Freaky Friday digital show with Simone Puorto. How are you, Simone?
Very good. What about you?
I'm very good, thank you. And today we have some new member on board, Mark Nater from Florida. Did I say correctly, man? My pronunciation is very bad, so don't ask me why. So I'm trying to do my best,
It's all right. It's nice with an Italian twang. Thank you so much, Enzo.
Thank you. I see also Beppe is there. It's
afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Giuseppe Messaina is the right pronunciation. Yeah.
Okay, I see already where we're going this episode today, Simone. Where we're going to land today is going to be really tricky. Anyway, so before we start the show, let me spend a couple of words. So Beppe, it's already part of the FunnelTV group as Mark also. Beppe will help us today during the show to watch your comments, guys. If you have any question, there are a lot of interesting news Simone is going to share today. So feel free to comments, make questions. Beppe will try to do his best to engage with you. So and if there is any question coming later, Giuseppe, just ring the bell. We open your webcam and you can jump in the conversation. Mark is the first experience live streaming, I think, with FunnelTV or in general, Mark?
In general, it is my first ever appearance, and I'm calling in from Clearwater, Florida, where the weather is amazing. We're emerging, and the traffic has gotten horrendous already. But I'm really great to be here. Thank you so much, guys, for inviting me to participate, and I'm looking forward to some exciting stuff.
That's great. That's great. Simone, before I open Adam and George, can you just quickly share 2-3 tips of your 10 news today? Which one are particularly you would like to highlight?
Sure. Well, the big one, of course, and we got Mark online, so we can probably witness directly, is about the SpaceX launch that has been rescheduled for tomorrow, actually. And even though that is not necessarily directly related to travel, you know that I'm a futurist, so I always try to keep an interest in space, because that could probably be the next destination for travel.
COVID-free, let's say COVID-free destination.
Not sure if probably they will have like some freakish alien virus. So, but yeah, sure.
Never know, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting. I'm a really geek in that, so I love space. And
do you remember the Tim Burton movie Mars Attacks?
Yes, I did.
Yes. And it was brilliant because like the main weapon to kill these aliens was Tom Waits music, right?
Yeah, I remember Jack Nicholson was there.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, what a movie. Yeah.
Right, so let's welcome on board Adam and George.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, guys.
Okay, let me just introduce these beautiful guys over here. George, we did I think we did an episode together already. Maybe it was a special episode that we did directly in Prague, if I remember correctly.
No, you remember incorrectly. I have been on FunnelTV. I've been with Enzo, but it was I think it was one of the first. It was the live version from WTM.
Yeah,
that is right. It was with the guys at Atomize. It was with Alexander.
Yeah,
yes,
with Alexander.
That's right. Yeah,
correct.
The last minute kind of improvised session. So yeah.
That was a lot.
Happy to be here on Freaky Friday, as Enzo calls it.
Okay, so George, Director of Sales UK and Ireland at Total Time Solutions, probably the first cloud native PMS in Europe, probably in the world, but officially that's the first one in Europe. And then we got Adam Rowledge. I hope I pronounced it right.
Pronunciation.
That's fine. Managing Director at Rowledge Associated Limited. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And okay, Enzo, I think we can start.
Yeah, let's start. So I'm going to share your screen, and Let's see what good news you are going to share with us. So, Beppe, just one second. Beppe and Marco, are you going to stay? You want me to put you in background? How you prefer, guys?
I'll go behind the scene to manage the live show.
Okay. So
Or keep Mark on the screen just for a few minutes, because I will because he was telling me, and again, this is the first news, Mark, so I'm just taking like 2 minutes of your time. But so if you're a space geek like me, probably you heard about the Falcon 9 Demo 2 mission, and this was originally scheduled for Wednesday at around 4 p.m. something. Didn't work out because of bad weather, and now it's rescheduled for tomorrow at 3:22 p.m. Central European time, if I remember correctly. And Mark, you told me that basically you can actually see it from your house. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, in previous launches, actually, I've actually seen it from my backyard, so you can see it go. It's just incredible to watch it go. So I'm excited to see this tomorrow. I'm going to be watching it on my laptop, sitting in my backyard, see if I can see it. If the weather here is so unpredictable. Well, it's predictable. They know it's not going to happen, but it's going to be so cool. If it's a blue sky, just going to be amazing. So I'm really, really excited and looking forward to it.
So do you think this is not going to happen tomorrow?
I just do this. It's going to happen. It's got to happen. We got to make it happen. It's historical moment. Incredible stuff, So just hoping it will. And I don't know what the contingency plan is, but hopefully they'll just keep trying.
But the problem, as far and I was talking to a friend working at MIT the other day that she has a little more technical understanding of that, and I'm only in for the geeky part, but I don't know how it technically works. But she explained to me that basically there is a very short window of time, and if you miss that, there's nothing you can do, because you need to be in line with the International Space Station, right?
Right.
And so I'm guessing if last time was Wednesday, maybe they have like one chance every 4 or 5 days, something like that. Who knows?
My question would be, how long do they keep going? I mean, how long do they keep trying? I mean, billions and billions of dollars involved here. So I would just hope that they just keep on trying, because we're all waiting in anticipation and all excited. This is such a historical moment, First time for however long that the Americans have gone up with people.
I think, if I remember correctly, this is the first time in 10 years that Americans goes into space with all American products as well, And so I think that will be that is actually a landmark in our history. So yeah.
And I mean, I'm just amazed at Elon Musk's vision, and he just has such a clear vision of what he wants to see happen. And we could be sitting here in 10 years' time, and just who knows what's going to happen then. It's exciting times, very exciting times.
I'm pretty sure you are. I think we discussed this last time we spoke, but you're guys familiar with the work of Joe Rogan, right? The podcaster, and the guy just signed a crazy contract with Spotify for, I think, 100 million, something like that, for its podcast. And a couple of weeks ago, Elon Musk came back to the podcast for the second time, and he said something amazing. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with one of the companies that Musk own, that is called Neuralink. And according to Musk, in 5 to 10 years, we will be able to communicate without words, so with some kind of telepathy, thanks to this brain kind of brain interface they're working on.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that I'd like to connect with you without speaking. I don't know. I think that'd be a bit scary, actually. But anyway, I hear you. I mean, just incredible. Underground roads in Los Angeles. Is that another thing he's doing?
The Hyperloop, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Hyperloop as well, yeah.
It's just mind blowing what you can achieve if you put your mind to it. My son just graduated yesterday from his high school, and the speeches were just incredible. you can do anything you want. Just go for it. Do good things, you know.
But actually, you gave me a good assist for a question. Now, we did a couple of episodes focusing more on the airline industries, and one thing we discussed was the fact that, you know, post coronavirus, the airline industry will look pretty different. And do you think this will accelerate the adoption of technology such as the Hyperloop?
Me personally, I just sit back and watch it happen, because I think it's just, when you got leadership like Mr. Musk, I mean, anything can happen. As long as it's not political, we're good. So I don't really have a firm comment on you on that, for you on that one, I'm afraid.
Adam, George, do you have any opinion on that? And again, it's pure speculation. Huh?
I think things like that are, you know, for mere mortals such as ourselves, is such an abstract theory at the moment that it's difficult to say, you know, whether it's going to come forward sort of, you know, 5 or 10 years. But it would certainly be nice to think so, that we're going to have you know, a Hyperloop soon. So you know, as Mark said, such a visionary as Musk, as long as you just keep him off Twitter, please. But yeah, such a visionary as Musk.
It's the only person I follow on Twitter. It's hilarious.
Oh, really? He's in the Mr. Trump school of Twittering, isn't he?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, let's certainly hope it brings it forward. There's definitely going to be undoubted changes in the airline industry, which we'll probably discuss a bit later. And if the Hyperloop is a byproduct of that, then all the better.
Adam, do you have any take on that?
I have to say, I'm not 100% familiar with the Hyperloop, so you've already commented on it fairly confidently. But I think for me, you know, these advances in travel technology and the way that we can experience different places, I'd certainly love to go into space, money permitting, obviously. But I was just thinking, you know, in terms of this thing around the weather, you know, how difficult it's going to be able to create these holiday experiences when it is so reliant on external factors. I mean, you know, you get in a plane pretty much in a gale force wind these days and get from A to B. But I certainly wouldn't like to get in one of those rockets and not 100% certain that it's going to be perfectly safe to do so. So I think there's going to have to be although I think the technology for consumers to get into space is great, and it's going to be probably not too long before many of us are doing it, for it to become more mainstream, as well as the price changing. I think that's going to be a real key barrier to overcome in terms of being able to schedule it.
So the vision from Musk is that sorry, Simone, it's 10 next year. They're offering someone to go for 10 days. I believe it's 1 day or 2 days of travel, and then 8 days on the space station.
I wonder how much is that? Do you know?
I think it's undisclosed, but it's been pushed back a couple of times. But they're saying 2021 they still want to offer it. So my question is, if the space station has some inventory, then who's going to be distributing it, and do they need a PMS?
Well, it's complete virgin territory.
I'd be pretty nervous doing a sales pitch to NASA though on cloud-based technology.
Look, let me share with you, because that's a very interesting thing. And you know, I got a book out next year, and that will be about you know, the technological singularity in travel. You know, and one big part of that is anything that has to do with you know, space and space travel. You know, believe it or not, this in the next 20 years, that could be like pretty much normal. And there are some companies, I can give you like an average amount of money. Like there is one company that is called Space Adventures, and these guys, they already do commercial trips to the moon, but one ticket is 150 million. So I'm not sure this will be like very mainstream anytime soon.
I would have thought the booking window is pretty amazing on that, right? Non-refundable rate, I think we got there too.
Yeah, crazy. But look, I'm just sharing with you, and maybe Beppe, you can share this on the LinkedIn Live. These are just a few, because I did some research on that. These are just a few companies just doing or at least theorizing commercial travel in space. Okay, so there are quite a few, and of course, one is Virgin. And but yeah, it's kind of, to me, it's very interesting, and it's very fascinating and intriguing to speculate on what travel could be in the future. And the idea that before our generation die, we will be able to see the space. That will be, that's it's a very cool thought to have. Speaking of which, let's move a little more down to heart. And Mark, if you want to go, sorry, I just took you so long online, but
no, it's been a pleasure. I'll be watching. Good luck, guys, and have a good show.
Yeah, thank you
Bye,
so
Mark.
much.
See you.
All right.
So it's Lufthansa. That's interesting. That's something else we discussed quite extensively during the last episode of Digital. But there is this trend of government buying stocks in airline companies, right? And apparently, the German government just put 9 billion euro in Lufthansa, right? And basically, if I remember correctly, they have now some 20% of stake in Lufthansa.
Yeah, correct.
And my question here is the following, because we are seeing a lot of this consolidation, right? And do you guys think that in the next 2-3 years, we could go back to a situation like the 80s, where you have like government taking care of, controlling the major carriers, and even the idea of dynamic rates could be obsolete? What's your take on that?
My first comment on this one is anything that pisses off Michael O'Leary of Ryanair is good by me. So apparently this has made him very angry because he's calling it illegal state aid. So yeah, then it's fine by me. But I mean, in defense of Michael O'Leary, who I don't like, and not many people seem to, he does seem to have a point. With the airlines that have gone in with sort of stronger balance sheets are in effect being punished, right? Because of all these bailouts of the other airlines. Whether or not it could go back to a case where a lot of airlines are kind of government funded or nationalized, then I don't personally see it, Simone, but I guess it's a case of the needs be the devil drives. If the virus continues and the economic crash is as hard and as lengthy as some are now predicting, then maybe there'll be no alternative. But I think we kind of had a discussion or post on LinkedIn, one of your ideas, which I picked up on, about a complete change in the airline model along a subscription basis or something like that. So certainly it seems there'll be a fundamental change one way or another. I personally would love to see this kind of subscription. Yeah.
That was Focuswire, right? Let me check if I can find it, so maybe we can share it. I think it was Focuswire.
I can't remember where it was where you posted from, but yeah, then a lot of people weighed in with different opinions and whether or not it could work in hotels, and I ended up sort of looking into it a bit and seeing that I don't know if you ever heard about this, but American Airlines did the Air Pass, where you could buy, I think it was $200,000, and you got unlimited travel for your lifetime in first class. And then there was a whole kind of there was a whole polemic about it, that people were abusing it and they had to detract it from people, and so it's kind of been tried in some formats before, interestingly. So
that's the one, huh? I'm just sharing it on my screen now. Air Pass.
No, I think this is different. I'm not sure, it looks like that could be their loyalty program, is it?
I think that's the loyalty program.
Yeah, there was an old thing. I can find it and post in the comments if you want. But I found a podcast all about it, and then a news story about this. I think it was in the 80s they offered it and then didn't quite get their maths right and ended up having to detract it from people that were abusing it. So it wouldn't be quite the same concept that we were discussing. I was just more of a 21st century, what we were discussing, right? A pay monthly subscription like your Spotify and your Netflix coming out every month, and could that work for Network Alliance or Star Alliance or an alliance of network airlines? So
actually my point was mainly because I really think that OTAs are moving to that direction. I think when it comes to hotel distribution, for companies such as Booking and Expedia, the SaaS model and a more B2B approach could really be beneficial. But it's an intriguing angle. Adam, do you have any take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already obviously pre-coronavirus seeing a lot of consolidation with some of the smaller airlines being picked off, and there's a whole Flybe thing and whatnot. So it feels bad to say it, especially because it's affecting me and my business person with the travel. But I actually think some of this is going to be good for the travel industry in terms of people slimming down what they're doing and actually being a lot better for the environment. I don't think the government had any choice, and I think we're probably going to see more of that kind of intervention, depending on how risk averse they want to be in terms of the quarantine. Because not only can the airline industry not survive, but obviously all of the connected industries and businesses as well. But certainly, I think it'd be something they look to get off of their balance sheets as soon as possible, just like they tried to with the banks after the last financial crisis. I think Lloyd's was up to about 80%. State-owned, wasn't it? So I think 20% is a drop in the ocean comparatively.
Oh yeah, totally. By the way, I think this was the original article we were talking about, George, and it was something I wrote for Hospitality Net. But there was I remember there was something, probably Linda Fox wrote that, but it was very interesting. Yeah. I think it was Linda. It was a very interesting take on FocusWire. Pepe, maybe you can try to Google it. It was Linda Fox FocusWire. The title was something in the line of airline industry SaaS model, something like that. It was a very interesting piece. Okay, good. And still talking about the airline industry, I heard that Boeing cut 12,000 jobs, and around 7,000 already this week. And 5,000 of them will leave the company somewhere next week. So, and it's always, when it comes to airline industry, the problem is always that I think it was United Airlines CEO that said that for every hour they don't fly, they lose $1 million. And so my question is, how resilient do you guys think that the airline industry can be when compared to the hospitality industry? That because they've been both, very, very hardly affected by the virus, but the costs involved with airline industry are so much higher when compared to hospitality. Do you have any take on that?
Yeah, I think one of the things is it's not going to go the way they want it to either, because it's only going to get worse as the focus has to be on being greener. That's just going to become more and more expensive. So I don't think there's necessarily anything that materially can be done to make themselves resilient against another similar situation like this. Really, I think we're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place on that one, and just again making businesses leaner, reducing the amount of flights, and trying to just to sort of be as streamlined as possible. But those companies that are already struggling just aren't going to survive through the next one. So whilst I think we're not going to go into a sort of nationalized position like we were just talking about previously, that we are going to see a much more of a situation where a few key players control the market.
But let me ask you something, Adam, because I think it was Alex last time we spoke about it that said that in order for most airline companies to survive, they need to fly at an average of 85 to 90% capacity all the time, right? So, and I honestly, I don't want to do any provision, but I honestly doubt that we will get back to those numbers somewhere in Q4 or even in 2021. So do you think this will have an effect on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, 2020 is a write-off, and just can we get through to the end of it for sure. But I do think that in 2021, providing we don't have lots of second spikes, that it will come back. I know most of the airlines are talking about not getting back to normal until 2022, 2023 sort of time. But I think because the fact that we have been in lockdown, that people will want to get out and take advantage of those opportunities as soon as possible, providing it's safe to do so, because we're not used to being kept in captive. We're wild creatures, and I think a lot of people are kind of realizing now that we only get one chance in life, and we need to take advantage of it when we can, really. And I know there's been a lot of surveys about hospitality businesses, and I think I saw something the other day that said about 2/3 of people want to get back out into a restaurant as soon as possible, and that the money that they're going to spend on doing that is in the billions in the first month. So
revenge travel, they call it.
Revenge. But I think that I'm certainly going to travel less in terms of domestic travel, because obviously the technology that we all have had available to us for many years is obviously starting to be used now. And I actually saw something the other day that I think said that Zoom is now worth more than all of the US airlines combined in terms of market capitalization, which I thought was quite interesting one.
Do you guys hear about? I think that's interesting for George, but I don't know if you heard about this Oracle deal they signed. This 8 times 8 deal. Going to send you that, but
Okay.
basically Zoom needed to change its cloud provider, and they unexpectedly they went with Oracle, just because Oracle was able to cut to make an offer that was 80% less expensive than Amazon. And so it's very interesting what is happening. But these Zoom guys, Jesus Christ, they grew like crazy over the last couple of months or so.
Yeah, it's comes to something when your nan says, "George, could we do a Zoom call on the weekend?" Like 3 months ago, I was trying to taking half an hour for a client to join a Zoom call to do a demo, and now my nan's proposing me to do a Zoom call. So
that's an interesting thing, though, and the one thing I keep saying is that a lot of things that happened because of coronavirus are just processes that already started before the virus, and the virus just accelerated them. And again, I do have some clients that some, let's say, more âgés, just old people, and probably this is the first time they went on a Skype call or they went on a Zoom call, and I think now they're kind of used to that and they kind of like it, and I think this will have an effect. This will totally have an impact on that. By the way, I just shared with you this Oracle piece. That's an interesting read. So again, Beppe, maybe you want to share it on the link. Let's move before we do one quick break. Let's move to news number. We are 1, 2, 3. This is number 4, and there's another company that is doing some layoffs, and that is Cvent, right? The mice management platform, and you're right, Adam. I think we will see a lot of revenge traveling, but when it comes to the mice industry, I think this will probably take a little longer to recover, right? And that is mainly because a lot of the events of 2020 has been postponed to 2021. So a lot of stuff will not happen this year, and this will impact mice. And the cut is not crazy, though. I think they cut like 10% of their workforce, but still, it is an indication to me. Do you guys have any opinion on the future of the mice industry?
I mean, I think majority of my work is as a speaker at conferences, so it's something that's certainly very close to my heart. But I think 10% obviously is, as you say, relatively small. I think mice is obviously something that's very long term, and I think most of the people that I'm talking to are. I had a call just a couple of days ago with a conference that I'm speaking at in November in Serbia. So time will tell, but they're very much planning to go ahead as normal, but with a lower capacity. And I think that's actually a really good opportunity for conference organizing companies to rethink their business model a little bit, because even if in normal times you had a capacity, for example, to say 500 theatre style, why are we not offering more blended attendance models where it's one package to attend in person and then it's another package to have full access on a remote basis via Zoom? Because actually, there's one speaker I was talking to the other day whose event was taking place in London, and it's now taking place online with the same ticket price, and they've only had a 10% drop in numbers. And their argument is, well, it's the same content that you're experiencing. You're not having to pay for the we're not obviously providing the food and drink, but you're not having to pay for a hotel, travel, and all of these kind of things. So we don't see why we shouldn't charge the same ticket price. So I think these kind of things are all going to come into play as we move forward, and people realize that there is a different way to doing it than just traveling to somewhere and being there in person, as we've done previously.
My take is that in the future there will be like some kind of hybrid offer. I think you're right. I think it will be the standard to have, even for big events, like an online part and in real life kind of approach. And I think this will even make things a little more interesting, because a lot of companies that on a normal day didn't have the budget to participate, could join events like those. But of course, yes, the discrimination with the price should be something to be taken into consideration. Sorry, George, I think I stopped you. You were saying something?
Well, no, actually, I was going to say, you both kind of not stole my thunder, but complete agreement. I was going to say the same thing. I just see it as, a hybrid model. And as Adam said, as is happening in kind of a lot of industries, right? And even in our own personal lives, it's going to be a chance to reset and rethink. And yeah, completely agree that the hybrid model seems the logical step. Personally, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear from you guys if you've attended any virtual conferences yet. I haven't personally, and I think there's such an X factor in the kind of, having a coffee, having a beer, having dinner afterwards, the travel to and from, and that kind of feeling of camaraderie of everyone landing there that can't be replaced. But at the same time, again, if it's a necessity, then or some people will feel unsafe doing so, then maybe they'll have to, park that bit and still can attend online. So definitely, it's going to be tough, I think, for kind of mice-driven businesses such as Cvent. But yeah, an opportunity there to kind of reinvent. But have either of you guys done these kind of virtual conferences yet?
Not one that was originally planned to happen in real life, and then it was converted. I think probably the only exception was ITB. Because they did something online, but
it's very last minute, wasn't it?
But it was very last minute, and it was like the early days, so it was.
Yeah.
But other than that, no. I attended like a ton of events or webinars that were originally from day one created for online landscape, but no. Adam, you?
No, but again, I think it just brings more opportunity to do things differently. This particular conference that I mentioned, they did something whereby they arranged for a voucher for a particular food retailer to be sent to all of the delegates who are attending. They purchased it all online and had it delivered, and they said, okay, this is the conference now for everyone who's staying for dinner. Pop off to your kitchen and put the ready meal in the oven. But thinking sort of past that, the stuff around Deliveroo or Uber Eats and whatnot, and you could literally sit in your underpants, enjoy the whole conference, and then have your favorite pizza delivered to you whenever you want. And I think whilst it's obviously going to sort of change things for venues, possibly that the possibility of, I would probably be able to attend more conferences and speak at more conferences as well because of the possibility of these hybrid models. So I think overall it's a good thing. And as George said, I like the networking. I like meeting new people, and sort of being able to sort of reflect there with a cup of coffee at the break. So I don't think it's going to sort of detract from that sort of segment of people who want that experience either.
Adam, but let me ask you. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Simo. On the pricing point, I was just going to say it's kind of rolling out the old revenue management cliche of the right product to the right person at the right price and the right time. Some people will want to travel, and maybe you pay more for that kind of face-to-face and that networking. Some people want to sit in their pants and have pizza and watch a couple of talks, and maybe that will be, slightly more affordable, and that will suit some businesses and some individuals. So.
Yeah, totally. Adam, let me ask you something quick. You do a lot of speaking work, right? So you do a lot of that. Do you feel like over the last couple of months you got more and more requests to do public speaking online? Do you think this, in the long term, this can even change the way we do public speaking?
The last month has been more so. I think the first, March to sort of the end of April was pretty quiet in all respects, but it is starting to definitely pick up now for September onwards, really. But actually not necessarily for doing it virtually, for in-person and virtual events. So it's I don't think, I would happily get on a plane tomorrow to anywhere that was probably not Wuhan, there's most of the speakers that I know and talk to said they just don't think they're going to get on a plane, but that's the thing that they miss the most doing. So but there are some really good events. It's going to take a while for people to get their head around how to do this stuff really well, because if you're charging £500 a ticket to attend a conference, it's got to be a really good product. It's got to be slick delivery and all of those kind of things, and people are only just really getting their heads around polls and hand raising sort of stuff. So
it is true that if you have let's try to walk in the shoes of an organizer, right? So you got less investment needed for the logistic, right? So like renting a place, and you could theoretically increase the level of the speakers, right? So
possibly. I mean, I think if you're, while we still have to do the physical distancing, I think yes, you'll save some money on food, but it depends on room hire, what hotels are prepared to do in terms of slashing their rates to get business in for those things, because you're still going to need a massive venue, even if you're accommodating a quarter of the capacity of delegates, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly the totally online model is massively reduces the barriers to entry for that market. And if you can get some really good investment, then the world's your oyster as far as attracting the best speakers is going and maximizing the profitability.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, guys, let's I would like to discuss something else. Airbnb just was checking some numbers, and according to Hotel Business, the total nights booked over the next 90 days for Airbnb went down only 15.6% year on year. And, it's when you look at this number and you compare it with the drop you had in hotel bookings, for example, I think it's safe to ask, to address the elephant in the room. And that is, do you guys think that a post-coronavirus world could be more beneficial for alternative accommodation? Do you think guests would feel safer to book an apartment rather than a hotel in for the remaining months of 2020 and 2021? George?
Yes, I think I read some as well. There's been actually some various articles come out about Airbnb and generally sort of vacation rental being a bit more resilient versus hotels. I think one thing to say is that you've got to be very careful in what data you're looking at there, because it's such a fragmented industry, and certainly with Airbnb, they can flex inventory. Hosts can open and close, so it's quite different from perhaps looking at the hotel data. But to answer the question, I would think there's certainly segments of that area of the industry that will certainly appeal a lot more to certain segments of the consumers. So I'm thinking along the lines of a family or maybe a couple of families wanting to go away. Then it would completely make sense for them to be able to rent a villa, a house somewhere where they can sort of contain themselves and make a small bubble. No need to go out and really interact once they've arrived. So certainly see some logic there as to why that might be. As to the data that's coming out already, I think that could just be almost a function of the virus. So people are sort of reacting and going away to try and isolate themselves. So perhaps that's why there's been a surge in the bookings as well. So whether that will then follow through into sort of 6 months as we get into recovery and hotels are reopening. And then the other thing, I think, obviously, that the age-old kind of debate between Airbnb and other providers versus hotels is the regulation. So I guess hotels are kind of more heavily regulated at the moment. So a lot of them are not even accepting bookings because the government hasn't given clear guidelines, whereas perhaps the private hosts have been a bit more quick to open up their inventory. So I think there's a lot of facets in it, and like many things we're talking about post-COVID and recovery, that it's too early to say. But I definitely see that. Yeah, I can definitely see the logic behind it, and there could be some a quicker recovery. Let's say for vacation rentals, service departments is another one I've been hearing anecdotally. Their recovery's been a lot quicker and looking more robust than hotels.
Adam, do you agree with that?
For the most part, yeah, and similarly, I've heard the same kind of stories in terms of service departments as well. I think demographics could come into it a little bit more as well. Some people may feel that the hotel, if we have this kind of COVID secure, kite marking, that's probably something that only hotels and maybe some bigger service department companies are going to go for rather than private Airbnbs. But I think, definitely the very short term, and now we can get groups of 6 people from Monday. I think the Airbnbs are probably better placed to cater for some of that as well, and being able to do everything yourself. I think the catering piece is really important. I think there's still a lot of uncertainty in consumers as well as the businesses around what restaurants are going to look like and whatnot as well, especially for people with young children, because it is just a lot harder to contain them as well. I've just had a walk along the beach with my son, and trying to get him to walk straight line with a packet of crisps is quite difficult. So I do think that will be the case. And again, just as you sort of said earlier on, in terms of some of the trends generally, it's that kind of acceleration of things that were already happening pre-COVID that we're seeing as there's been a bit of a catalyst for that.
And that's interesting, and one of the other news, but it's very connected to this, is the fact that hotel beds just launched a new filter called Safe Stay. So basically, you can see it on my screen right now, and what you can do, you can basically filter results by different COVID-19 health and safety measures in place for not only hotels but for providers as well. So it would be interesting to see guests not picking a hotel only because of location, price, and value, but choosing a hotel even based on the level of security they perceive. That will be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Simo, I read. I feel relatively strongly about this. That and actually, I read first. I think it was CEO of Best Western in the UK. Adam, is Rob Patterson, is it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Patterson in an interview saying the last thing which hotels want is a arms race in terms of hygiene and cleanliness. So I think the point there, which really hit home to me, and that was a couple of weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I think as an industry as a whole, it would be a terrible mistake if the hotels just try to market themselves on how COVID secure they are and how hygienic they are and how clean, because that's not what hospitality is about, right? We don't want hospitality to turn into hospital. When I'm going to stay somewhere, I want to that hospitality, that warmth of a person talking to me and whatever it may be that you like about your favorite hotel, rather than just purely seeing screens and hand sanitizers everywhere and one-way systems and that. So I'm not saying in any way that hotels shouldn't be doing that or they shouldn't be wary of it, but I think it would be a mistake as an industry if that becomes, as Rob phrased it, an arms race, in terms of hygiene. So it would be great if there was, a kind of a kite mark. I think Adam mentioned it there, and I think that's a little bit what hotel beds are trying to do. But as usual with hospitality, it's just so fragmented already that there's, I've just seen so many different kind of kite marks and standards and people trying to come up with it that I don't know if as an industry we'll have kind of one recognized kite mark. My vision would be one kite mark. I've got that, I've passed my test, and I don't need to worry then about marketing, how many hand sanitizers I have per meter in my corridor, because that's not what it's about. So
that's right. Even though and I completely agree with you. That is why, I tried, even for my clients, I try to stay away from the trap of using coronavirus as a marketing tool, because today it is becoming a marketing tool as well, But it's interesting to look at the semantic origin of the word. And, hospitality actually the Latin root is the same for both hospital, hotel, and interestingly enough, hostility. And this is something I wrote on a old hospitality hotel networks. I don't even remember when I published this. And but you see, basically, hospitality is still it has this kind of like tribal meaning. That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. I think that's a trap. It's only a trap to use coronavirus as a marketing tool, and I'm kind of surprised that a lot of players are doing this with such nonchalance. And Hotel Beds is one of those. And see, if you go here, that is basically the only thing you can read on the homepage of Hotel Beds right now is information about coronavirus. Yeah, Christophe, you're right. Thank you, Christophe. A close friend is adding a comment online and saying Accor launched a safety label as well. Yeah, you're right.
Adam, you're ex-GM, so where would you be sitting on this now? Would you be just saying, right, we've got to do everything to kind of make the hotel as secure and hygienic as possible and be perceived by the guests to be that, or would you rather be taking a view of, guests are coming as everyone's saying domestic leisure travel is going to be the first thing to come back. Well, if I'm traveling to a hotel in London or somewhere in the country with my wife as a domestic leisure traveler for a weekend because I can't go abroad, the last thing again that I want to see is kind of people in face masks and being handed a mask as I walk in, and a one-way system in the corridors, etc. But is it a necessity, do you think? Where would you sit?
I think probably in the short term. So we think about this quite a lot, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not what anyone wants, but I think we're definitely not out of the woods yet, and I think that would probably be the way forward. I wouldn't necessarily use it as a marketing approach, but I think in terms of communicating, what you're doing to make it's safe, just to kind of give people that confidence and reduce any anxieties that people might have about trips that they may especially need to take. I personally wouldn't necessarily be traveling to London for domestic. I'd probably be going countryside or coast, I have to say. I think sort of outside area is going to be a premium product to be able to offer during these times. But the two kind of things that I read recently, which linked to this theme, was in terms of the marketing. I think I saw Cyprus are offering people a refund on their holidays, excluding flights, if they contract coronavirus while they visit Cyprus, which I thought was a pretty bold move. But obviously, they're heavily reliant on travel and tourism as an economy, and I think I've only had 17 coronavirus related deaths. So obviously, fairly safe bet, I think, from their perspective on that, as long as they control who's coming and going. But also there was an article that I read just yesterday around, as a hotelier, many an experience of people having maybe a few too many drinks and a dodgy kebab at the end of a wedding, and then blaming the hotel for food poisoning or something along those lines. And I think we all recognise that things like bed bugs are an issue in the industry as well. So what's that going to lead to in terms of coronavirus? Are we going to start having this kind of I contracted coronavirus at your hotel? How is that going to kind of play out? So I think that's something which maybe some people haven't thought of yet, and there's going to have to be kind of strong policies in place around that to supplement the practices that people are doing to take reasonable precautions.
There is, if you look at my screen right now, that's an article published by Cameron Sperance on Skift, and that's exactly about that, And I think this will be, I think coronavirus will make a lot of lawyers richer because it will be very easy for guests to imply that they got the virus at the hotel, and so it's a very interesting read. I think this is something that we need to take into consideration, just to put in place some kind of regulation to avoid liability for hotels. I think there is a huge risk for hotels here.
Yeah. Sorry, George.
I read the article. I thought it was quite. You could tell it was or I'm guessing Cameron is in the US. It seemed quite US centric, where they have this kind of litigation culture. Definitely not saying it couldn't happen here in the UK. I don't know about the rest of Europe, but my angle on it would be that the employers having a duty of care to their employees who are traveling, that's where the kind of litigation might fall. So i.e., if I'm going on a business trip and I've taken a plane and in a restaurant, gone to a conference and stayed at a hotel, and I come back with the virus and subsequently something happened to my health, did the employer take all the necessary steps to ensure that the airline that they used, that the hotel I booked, etc., was safe and secure? So I think that's kind of, obviously not in the legal profession, but that's where, anecdotally, I would see that there's a stronger chance of it happening in the UK, where there's probably less of a litigation culture on a personal basis, suing someone for something like that.
It'll be great to have a lawyer on the show one of these days, because I can tell you, I'm Italian, and in Italy they will sue you for fucking everything, my friend. It's you need to be careful. And I literally was in meetings with clients, and these clients look like best buddies, but they had ongoing litigation between them. So it's really I think that will be a fun one. Okay, guys.
The article says it's so hard to prove where you actually contracted the virus that it's.
I think it's impossible. I don't think do you have a Marriott strain of coronavirus? Maybe you can do it with countries. I think probably that's an African strain. I think there is already a mutation of the virus. I think the Italian version is a mutated version of the Chinese one, and the American version is a mutated version of the Italian one. But to get to the level of granularity and say that you got the Hilton coronavirus, I think that's kind of far-fetched. Okay, guys, let's do 30 seconds of break, and then we wrap it up with a little interview to you guys, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's start with Adam. So, Adam, tell me a little more about your company and what you do for a living.
So Rowledge Associates is a business which delivers employee experience guidance and workshops for businesses in all sectors. So we really focus on how to create award-winning cultures and high-performing teams through things like the employee experience, talking about culture and values, leadership development, and building communication and trust in teams, as well as looking after employee well-being.
Especially in these times, what do you think is the best way for companies to engage with their team to keep them motivated? Because a lot of these people are not working right now, right?
Yes, I mean, obviously it's going to be different for different countries depending on what sort of support has been put in place by governments. But certainly in the UK, as you say, in the hospitality industry, the majority of people have been furloughed with the coronavirus job retention scheme. But still very important to engage with them during this time and just make sure you stay within the confines of the government guidelines. But certainly by communicating on a regular basis to make sure that people have the most accurate and up-to-date information about what's happening, because I think there's so much content out there. Certainly probably in the first month, everyone and their dog had an opinion on what was going to be happening. Actually, it was quite unsettling for a lot of people, a lot of anxiety in that. So that's definitely something which is really important. And also just to sort of check in on them, see how they are and see how you can help them, because it's a massive thing for people who are 8 to 12 hours a day in an environment with hundreds of people around, rather than sitting on their own in their home, without any sort of contact with people, and then really taking the opportunity to develop them as well, because certainly again in the UK with the restrictions around what you can do whilst furloughed, training and development is one of those things. So making sure that people are staying, keeping their minds engaged as something that can really help them personally, but also helping the business in terms of being able to be ready to fire on all cylinders when we get that green light to reopen the businesses as well. And then again, looking after their well-being. A lot of anxiety has come out of this, both in terms of the virus itself, but also the impact that it's had on them, perhaps in terms of their financial well-being because of loss of earnings and that sort of thing.
I was reading somewhere that they were even thinking about giving psychological support to entrepreneurs, and I think it kind of makes sense. I think it's imagine somebody that is imagine an hotelier with his property closed for 3 months, 6 months, and or imagine seasonal properties and where they basically didn't even open in 2020. What kind of suggestion would you give to this kind of entrepreneur?
Definitely. And I think whilst it's been very important to look after the employees of businesses, certainly that's it can get very lonely at the top, as they say. So one of the things that we do is actually support people in all stages of their career, but specifically business owners and leaders from a mentoring perspective. So having someone that they can go to talk through these challenges, bounce ideas off, and just think things through quite often, as well as being reassured that what they're doing or thinking of doing can be the right thing, because certainly not necessarily something you want to go into all of the detail with your team with, but actually, I think what is really important is that business leaders do engage with their teams in terms of how they can get out of this, because we can't have all of the great ideas ourselves. And a lot of the time, those people who are closer to the coal face in the business really are best placed to talk about what solutions we can do to get out of this. So I think everyone needs support at some time, so it's about engaging the right people at the right time.
And so do you think there is in some ways, do you think there is a way of saying too much about the virus even with your team? Because I'm seeing a lot of companies just taking communication at different levels. Like you have the management that kind of has a full picture of what is going on in the company, and then you got a lot of, and I think that is where a lot of the anxiety comes from. You have the more operational staff that maybe they don't know exactly what is going on inside the company. So my question is, what would be a good balance in communicating in terms of in moments of crisis like this?
I think the key thing really is just to be really candid with people. They're certainly not, we don't normally have stupid people working for us. They're quite capable of putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with what they think is going to happen. But I think by not communicating, that's where, again, you create that kind of level of uncertainty. So, I was talking to somebody the other day who was a HR manager in a business who doesn't know what their future is going to hold when their business reopens. And I think, if the HR manager is in that position, then what's everyone else feeling in terms of their anxiety? So I think, being very clear with people, if you suddenly go from being a business that doesn't really communicate anything to do with the business at all to communicating everything, then that may sort of freak people out just a little bit. You're going to have to take a bit of a gradual approach to that. But people want to know what's happening. And I think even the difficult conversations that are going to have to come, because whilst most people are on furlough at the moment, it may well be that a number of companies do have to make redundancies in the next few months as that scheme sort of winds to an end. But by having those conversations at the earliest appropriate opportunity, and being really transparent about the whole thing is really important as well, because I worked at a hotel that closed once, and we had to make everyone redundant, but it was fairly obvious that we were going to, because it wasn't going to be a hotel anymore. But it's stupid. Some people didn't know why they were furloughed. They knew about the virus and the business was good, but they didn't understand why they'd been furloughed, why the people hadn't been furloughed, what they were supposed to do while they were furloughed. And I think just being really open with people about that is the critical thing. And some people are doing that better than others. Some people are really engaging their team about what they're doing with them on furlough in a public basis as well. And I think that's a really strong thing to do for an employer brand, is to sort of take this opportunity to show that during this time of crisis, we're the people doing the right thing.
There was an interesting study, I think it was Qualtrics or maybe Review Pro, but it was a reputation management platform anyway. And he said that around 57% of negative experiences in hotels are due to the staff, right? Do you think that maybe you know, and I know you can be a little biased here, of course, but do you think we are underspending in staff training and maybe overspending in advertisement, technology, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, at the end of the day, you've got to spend the money on the thing that's going to give you the return that you need the most at that time. Definitely, there is an underinvestment in training, but I think that also people are making poor investments in training. So I was actually looking at some statistics just the other day that basically, sort of post 2008, 2010, actually investment in, or the number of hours, that people would involved in training across businesses in all sectors increased, but then it decreased slowly over time, and actually for the last 3 years has remained constant. And we can all have the same beds these days, the same product in the spa and all that kind of thing. The people that are really going to make the difference, or what's really going to make the difference, is our people. So we really do need to invest more in that. But the days of regardless of physical distancing, training being just sitting in a meeting room for 8 hours, are, I wouldn't say over, but certainly diminishing. And certainly I think in the way that we deliver workshops is usually a half-day workshop, and there's a blended delivery model in terms of ongoing coaching and whatnot. But I think also we're going to need to be more flexible, so more online training, more game-based learning, things that people can pick up and do for 15 minutes while there's a quiet point during a shift are going to be really important to keep developing team members whilst we're still having to be very lean around payroll costs.
I don't remember who said that, but to me it was an amazing angle. And they said meetings should be done while planking. You do plank and you do meetings, and that is the right time for a meeting. So I totally agree with you. Tell me something, Adam. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Via email, adam@rowledgeassociates.co.uk, or via social media, Twitter or Instagram @AdamRowledge. Okay,
I am sharing your email address on LinkedIn. So Beppe, I'm going to share this with you. There it is. Very good. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Adam. It was a pleasure to have you on board. We will publish all your contacts. So it's you got the email in the LinkedIn description, or is rowledgeassociates.co.uk. Okay.
Thank you. Great chatting to you.
George, so let's go back to you. So for people that don't know anything about you, tell me a little about Hotel Time Solution and about what you do.
Sure. So first of all, Simone, I don't think I even said it at the beginning, but thank you very much for having me. It's a huge honor to join you and Enzo on FunnelTV. And as you can see, I took the opportunity to honor that moment by getting dressed up.
You look amazing.
Haven't had the excuse to do so.
I feel so underdressed now. That is, it's next time I need to rent a tuxedo or something like that. George
got frozen. He's shine guy, Simone. You gave him such a good,
Yeah, I think it was the compliment.
He's back.
I'm back. I'm back with you. Yeah, I can't take compliments, so I just zoned out. Anyway, yes, thanks. I missed what you said, but thanks for having me, Simo. And Hotel Time. So, so I've been with Hotel Time about coming up 2 years now. And as you mentioned at the very outset of the show, Hotel Time is a cloud-based PMS, and born and raised in the cloud. So not wanting to get very technical, but it's not something which started out as a server-based system, but rather was actually designed to be in the cloud. And that's quite important, because it means the infrastructure is quite light, and it also shows us what an innovative company it was, or is. Sorry, to design something to be operated in the cloud in 2002. So whenever we talk or do something, you're always saying that we're the first ever cloud-based system, and I'm not 100% sure, so I'm happy for you to say that on my behalf, just in case anyone comes back and argues it. But yeah, certainly one of the first.
And what is your position in Hotel Time?
So Hotel Time is a Czech company, so the headquarters is in Prague, and we've had a few clients 5 or 6 years ago, I think, up to in the UK. But around a couple of years ago, the guys made a decision to say that the next sort of strategic focus for Hotel Time was to grow the customer base and expand into the UK. So that's when they hired me. Job title is director of sales, but I'm also kind of wear quite a few different hats, working with different bits from marketing, sales, and speaking to our clients, obviously. So yeah, you can see we've got a pretty decent spread there on the screen of where we have clients based. And yeah, as I said, the UK is kind of seen as the next sort of strategical focus market. But having said that, we also have satellite offices in Bangkok, in Dubai, in Colombo in Sri Lanka. So as soon as we get some clients on the ground, we like to put someone close by them, kind of physically and figuratively, if you like.
Makes sense. How many offices do you have right now? Physical offices?
Physical offices would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
5 in those locations I mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Now, at the very beginning, you told me something that, and again, I don't want to be too technical here. It's not the point. But you told me a little about the main difference between a system that is migrated to the cloud and a system that is cloud native, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was checking LinkedIn, and I saw that Jan, the CEO and one of the founders of Hotel Time, wrote this interesting debate today on LinkedIn. I don't know if you had the time to take a look at this, but
I saw it earlier. Yeah,
but it was kind of interesting to me because there are a lot of benefits that are quite obvious about software that were coded from day one on the cloud, right? And we, again, it's nothing new. It's you can outsource pretty much all the IT part of the technology, better data security. Usually, you don't have like infrastructure costs, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. But Jan made this interesting point to me, and that was, what a lot of what is being taught in university today is cloud coding, right? So we could be in the situation that in 5 years, in 10 years, it will be very hard for a legacy system to find somebody that actually understand the language used to write the software. And I don't think I ever read this angle anywhere. So would you agree that this could be another benefit of implementing something that's cloud native? And on top of that, would you maybe explain me, again, I don't want to go very technical, but can you maybe explain me why cloud native is superior to migrated to the cloud?
Yeah, sure. So I think, maybe Jan's point of what he's asking is not going to be something that the end user, the hotelier themselves, would necessarily be interested in, but it's rather the development of the cloud, and whether whether you want to work with obsolete technology where there's less and less people able to even use it or edit it and do the coding. To make it really simple, the difference that we're talking about here between something that's cloud native and sort of and migrated from a server based or a hybrid, as they call them, could be some, we could really make it simple by saying Hotel Time is very light infrastructure. So to give a working example of that, if you're a hotel in the Highlands in Scotland, for example, where you have very limited bandwidth or internet drops sometimes, Hotel Time you could easily run on a hotspot, 4G, 3G even. We've got clients you showed there in Kenya, etc. So because the infrastructure is so light, you can easily run your PMS. You can access all your data, your bookings, your reservations from a very sort of low bandwidth connection. So that would be the working example compared to a system which has been migrated from a server-based system. The coding is different. Don't ask me the details of it, but it takes up a lot more bandwidth, so you might not necessarily be able to run that comfortably.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you build something to work on a physical server probably concern in terms of how much bandwidth you're using, they don't affect you really. So I can understand how migrating a system from a legacy system to the cloud can create this kind of problem. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But let me tell you something. Enzo, it was 3 weeks ago, we had a guest in digital, and he told us a very funny story. And the story went like this: that one of his client, actually, that was working on a legacy PMS, and because of the coronavirus lockdown, he could not go physically, to the hotel. So what he did was, overnight, it just went to the hotel, took the server, put the server in the car, and took the server home. Okay,
like a troll. He was in the middle of the street. Yeah.
Enzo, who was that said this story? I don't remember.
I think it was Alberto from 5 Stelle. I think it was Alberto.
I was listening to that one, actually, or watching, Simo. It was Alan Nelson from Foresight.
Yeah, I was the guy from Foresight.
You're right.
And actually, the story was he didn't put it in his car, but rather he had it on his back, as Alan told the story.
It was
wow. Yeah, you're right. Jesus Christ.
He was walking down the streets of Edinburgh with a server on his back.
I wanted to see the face of this guy bringing this server on his back, and thinking of, why did I buy this legacy system stuff?
But I mean, to me, this would be like the perfect advertisement for a cloud native system. Imagine you got this guy in the middle of the night with a server on his back, and walking around in Edinburgh.
Oh my God!
Jesus Christ! Okay, that's cool. And I know, George, and I know that you do offer a suite of services. So it's not only PMS, right? You got a POS, you got a spa system as well, right?
Yes, yeah. So Hotel Time Solutions is the name of the company, with a suite of 4 products. Hotel Time is the PMS, so the core product. But you're absolutely right. There's then the EPOS system, Vento, which sits alongside. So obviously, hotels with a restaurant. Libero is the spa management system, and the 4th one is Confero, so MICE management system as well. So our sweet spot of a client, if you like, is a full service hotel that might want to utilize all of those 4, but equally they can be standalone products or not, and we work with smaller hotels who would just take the PMS. And our kind of motto, as you know, Simone, is every hotel is different. So that's kind of how we work with hotels and try to get to know them. So it's not anything with Hotel Time. It's never a kind of an off the shelf, but rather we try to get to know the hotel and how we can cater our system to work best for them.
And this was something else that, and I don't remember if it was you or if it was Jan publishing this post, but it was somebody in Hotel Time, and he said that there is this trend. There has been this trend over the last couple of years of PMS becoming more and more simple hubs for technology, right? So you got a PMS, but literally the only thing that this PMS can do is like a front office system where you can connect different technology, right? Mm-hmm. And it looks like you guys are going on a complete different direction, though, because even though you keep a very open and agile system, you do offer all these services proprietarily, right?
Yeah. So we, I guess we tread a fine line, you could say, because on the one hand, we don't want to be a jack of all trades and master of none, and that's why we don't do the kind of the booking engine, which we used to many years ago, but now we don't focus on it. We don't do our own channel manager because we think there's the experts out there that do that. So we want to be the kind of the best in class at what we offer. So therefore, we do have the open APIs, and we connect to the choice of tech stack of the hotel that we're talking to. On the other hand, we don't believe that a PMS should just become like a dashboard, like you're saying, which is just connections to hundreds of others, and the PMS itself is not doing anything. So we do think there should be robust functionality within the PMS to enable you to manage the core functions of a hotel, which I think the LinkedIn post you're referring to might have been Jan's about the housekeeping, whether that falls within the PMS or that should be a third party.
Yeah,
debatable, but for us, probably housekeeping is a core function, and in the PMS, you should have strong enough features to be able to manage your housekeeping department without having to connect to another app. On the other hand, like I say, we acknowledge that a channel manager, potentially, a CRM, a revenue management system, falls outside of our scope of expertise, and therefore we want to connect to the guys that are best in class in their field. So,
Christoph is asking a question, and what about CRM? And I think the question is, should a CRM be part of PMS, right?
You're breaking up. I've got to go.
Okay.
It's a kind of a debate we have a bit internally, and I know I've seen it elsewhere in the industry. So I think, speaking from hotel time point of view, we, I guess, maybe hedge our bets a little bit there. We have some functionality. Of course, you should have, your guest profiles and be able to look into booking history and things like that. If we're trying to develop a all singing, all dancing CRM as one of the modules within it, then I would say no, because again, there's kind of the experts in their field who do that. So I guess, that it's definitely a good question, and I don't have a direct answer, but for now, hotel time is somewhere in the middle, specifically on
That's very politically correct. Thank you, George. Okay, what's the best way to get in touch with you? So that's hoteltime.com, the website, and
email address is george.titlow@hoteltime.com, but LinkedIn as well is always a good place.
Yeah, I'm going to share your email address in LinkedIn right now so they can get in touch with you. That's fine. Well, George, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Adam, again, thank you so much for being with us today and spending some time with us. Enzo, I think that's all on my side. We can wrap it up here.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It was nice talking to you. I don't know. I don't remember where are you sitting, George and Adam?
I'm in Brighton.
In Brighton. I love it. Yep. Lovely. Yeah. I know well that place. I was there several times. The only time I missed Brighton was for Fatboy Slim live on the beach, man. It was a famous. Wow, man, that was crazy. I've seen this live in TV, but there's this famous bridge on Brighton. If you've never been there, guys, you gotta go. And there is a very nice historical center in Brighton. And compared to the other city in UK, I think it's the most cosmopolitan and European style city probably in UK, right?
Yeah, well, so for anyone not in the UK, Brighton is known as being the kind of most liberal, left-wing, hippie kind of town. So we have, out of, I don't know how many MPs there are in total in Parliament, 600 and something. There's only one MP which represents the Green Party, and that's the constituency which I live in Brighton. So we're very green and hippie.
Yeah, it's a cool city. I love it.
Great music scene, though. Amazing music scene in Brighton. If you're a music lover, that's an amazing place to be.
What about you, Adam?
I'm in Folkestone in Kent, so
come on, really?
Yeah.
No, I can't believe so, man. It's a very funny episode today, Simone. I used to live in Folkestone for 3 years, man.
Really?
Oh, really?
I'm talking about back in 1996 until 1999. I was living between Folkestone, Canterbury, and Broadstairs. I was working as a waiter. I was very young, and I was in UK for 4 years, doing my work experience, study, learning English. And at some point, I had some friends with some very cool Italian restaurants, as usual. Is where an Italian can start to work when he goes abroad. And actually, I had a very great time at La Parisienne, Bunker, and I know very well the place, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I also grew up not too far away from there as well, Enzo.
Did you?
In Maidstone, Kent, so about 30 minutes away, yeah.
Oh, man, that's, the world is so small. And you know what? I'm not been there now since many years. There was this nice harbor in Folkestone, and then we used to go Sandwich. There is a very nice seaside. The long street goes to.
I'm showing on my screen. I'm sharing on my screen a postcard. I think that's the place you're referring to.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very close to Dover. Yeah, this is a very. I think it's a very old picture of.
Yeah, I think that's from the 50s or the 60s.
A little bit, yeah. But yeah, it's so crazy time there. And where about you living, folks, on exactly?
On the East Cliff, so yeah, about 5 minutes walk from the harbour arm. So yeah, it's really nice.
Cool.
And
cool.
less expensive than Brighton.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was nice having you on board. So discovering that is so fun. So thank you, guys. It's weekend time now. So how are you going to spend this weekend?
I think I'm going to sleep, my friend. I have so much back sleep that.
Really?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
4:20, man. So you got, couple hour relax and then some good wine maybe later. Yeah, why not?
George, what about you? Beer?
I've got back into tennis because it's one sport we're allowed to play in lockdown. So I'm a big cricketer. We can't play cricket at the moment, so I'm going to go play tennis at 5, and then my wife is picking me up, and we're going to have dinner on the beach tonight.
Nice.
Very good.
Cool.
Adam?
Not decided yet, but probably we'll go out for a nice long walk together somewhere with the family, and yeah, probably down to the beach as well.
That's very good.
Well, Mark is going to join the beach in Clearwater in Florida, which is not bad place. I actually know that there is a very famous beach there. It's on top of the first 5 beach in US. So anyway, guys, so thank you again for staying with us. I will see you next Friday, same time, same channel, with Simone and some other new guests. Of course, George and Adam, you are always welcome if you want to back again and share with us some good news. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye for now.
Ciao.
Bye.